In this installment, we're going to add in a boss. So we've made some artwork for a boss. The boss is also going to be able to then launch fireballs, so it's an animated fireball. So we need to add these two pieces of art into our project, and then we will work on the appropriate classes to go along with that. So let's wander down into right above setup, and we can add these in. So we're going to add our boss art, and we're also going to add in our fireball art. So we're going to need those. We're going to need to add in classes for those and a timer for the fireballs so it can't just fire repeatedly. We also need to keep track of something else, and we'll keep track of our remaining enemies. So this is going to allow us, we need to know, I want the boss to spawn once we've cleared the board of all of the enemies. So as we add this, let's go down again, continuing what we've done before, and what we can do is do our boss art. Is going to be load image, and the image will be face1row.png. So of course yours will be whatever your artwork is, and then I will have fireball image art, load image. So again, yours can be whatever you want, and then remaining enemies will be equal to our max enemies. So we'll start the game. Now, to do that, we are going to want to modify things. One, I can bring back so that they can hurt me because, well, why not? So let's get into our enemy stuff here. So this is now intersect with enemies. So instead of telling the enemies to reset, what we want to do is we want to change we want to give them a property, whether they're active or not. So we want to adjust whether enemies are showing up. So we will say active equals false. Now, when we do that, it's red because it says, hey, that variable doesn't exist. Well, that's easy enough to put into it. Let's go into the enemy class. Boolean active, and then we will give active, let's go down again, follow our same process, equals true. So we start out true, and then when we reset, we'll need to reset that as well, so we might as well put that in now. So reset is where we put all of the values that we use when we're resetting our objects, because when we add states into our game, we'll need to be able to reset them. So when we do that, we will then set active equal back to true. We restore their health, we tell them to wander again, and we reposition them into some new random location. All right, so that's what we need to do for the enemy. So the enemy becomes false, and then remaining enemies minus minus. So we subtract 1 from it, and then what we will be able to do when we do this is then when that remaining enemies is 0, at that point we will tell the boss it gets to become active. So that's kind of the process that we're working with here. Now we also want to make it so that we don't want to check on all enemies. Here, the same way that we have active projectiles, what we want to do is we want to be checking here if we're intersecting, but also we want to only do this when the enemies are active. So we can go inside here and go double ampersand enemies square brackets J dot active, and if you want you can write double equal true. Don't have to. because if you just state something that's a Boolean, if you're stating it, you're saying when this is true. And if you put an exclamation in front of it, then you would say when it's false, but we want when it's true. So if it makes you happy, you can write out double equals true. So we only check intersection on active enemies. The same way we make the projectile go false when they intersect, we're also going to make the enemy go false when its active go false, when its health drops below 0. So that's kind of how we are managing this. Remaining enemies goes there. And once we get our boss, then we can even just stub this in right now. Remaining enemies. So if remaining enemies is less than or equal to 0. So double equals 0 would be the most correct way, but by putting the less than or equal, for some reason, if it somehow pings twice when we have an intersect, it just guarantees once we know we're at negative enemies, because sometimes we get weird things happening now. So if and we can't put the space here like that, we have to have it less than or equal to 0. Then at this point, make boss active. Don't have the boss yet. That's what we're going to do next. All right, so now comes the fun part. Let's add in a boss. Now, I am going to, just recycle a bunch from the player to put that into the boss. So we're just going to copy that, go into the boss class, paste, we'll get hate messages until I finish renaming this. So when we're looking at the boss, we need our x, y, and our width, height, vx, vy. I'm not going to worry about a max speed because we're going to just give the boss random speed as we work with it, so we can get rid of that. Sprite stuff, that'll stay the same. Health, max health, that's going to stay the same. Hold, delay. What we do want to do, though, we are going to have one more value that we work with here. And this is going to be move hold. So what the move hold is we're going to just be holding off changing what our Vx and Vy are. So we're going to make it randomly every kind of 60 frames. It's going to then spawn out new Vx and Vy. So we get this just really random movement of our boss, making it hard to play with there, but kind of fun. All right, so if we go into the boss here, if I look at it, it is 102 pixels wide, 816, so it's 102 by 102, that's its size. So we're going to modify our 32 up to 102. Vx and Y start at 0. We don't have a max speed or excel anymore. Get rid of those. We will have a move hold. And we'll start at move hold at 0. Sprite stuff stays the same except for total number of frames. We can count here and see that it is 8 frames long, not 4. So we'll go 8 on it and put that in. And we'll give the boss a lot more health, so it's a boss. It's harder to kill. That just kind of makes sense. And finally, the boss, unlike the enemies, is going to start out false, which means we need to go Boolean equals Boolean, and this will be active. Okay, that takes care of our constructor, that takes care of our variables, so now we can start putting everything in on this. So let's see, our reset. Health becomes max health, resets it back in the middle, and we know that resets are pretty much just going to be very similar, to what happens in the constructor. So we're resetting our health, our position, and our active on there, so we're no longer active. Could even go Vx equals 0 and Vy equals 0. So this reset, we're not going to call for any, until we actually put states in the game, but as long as we're thinking about it, we might as well put it in. We know we are going to need it. Currently, I don't think we need to add health because the boss doesn't have a way to power back or regenerate. You could, probably figure out a way to do that if you wanted to. All right, so now under the update, I am going to get rid of a bunch of this stuff here that we don't need. So we'll get rid of that. And our boundary check is going to be a lot easier because we don't wrap. We're going to use the -1s on it. And we can't go off screen, so Vx is 0. Or x is greater than width minus w, because we don't want to go off screen. We want them to bounce. When that happens, at that point, then we will just go Vx, not plus, multiply equal -1. So using our -1 trick that we've used before on it. So then that takes care of that, else if, and let's just go down until we get a y1 right here. So that'd be right there. So y is less than 0, or y is greater than height minus h minus 40. And then once again, we can just go to here and go Vy multiply equal -1. So that's going to give us some bouncy bounce on the walls, boundary check. This updates frames, blah, blah, blah. None of that needs to change. So our hold move and our randomness, that's what we want to figure out how to put that into it. So we want to update our position, every 60 frames or whatever number you want to put in. So move, hold, it's going to be equal to move, hold, +1, then modulus, and right now I'm going to just try 60. So that effectively creates a counter. Move, hold will just become 0 through 59, 0 through 59, 0 through 59. That's how it counts, because we're keeping the remainder with the modulus. So move, hold, and effectively just keeps going up. But that's a super easy way to just create a repeating loop. So now if move, hold is equal to 0, at that point, we want to go Vx is equal to floor random, and we'll go 10. Repeat the same thing for Vy is equal to floor. And we have to floor because Vx and Vy are integers, so random gives us a float number, so we can't keep that. So now this gives us random values. And finally, if we go down here, we can see we have these values which are drawing our health bar across the top based on the size of the object, not just a fixed size. And we don't want to see our player art, we want to see our boss art. So then that gives us the boss art and draws it on screen. Sweet.